All right, so mirror strafing in Apex, right? It's pretty easy to do. All you do is just copy the direction that the opponent's going in with your inputs, and then you make the corrections with your mouse needed to stay on target, which are very little. For the most part, you're not moving your mouse very much, and this makes close-range engagements significantly easier because there's less visual clutter. When you try and move your mouse like this, there's a lot of visual clutter on your screen. There's a lot of going on. It's disorienting. It's hard to stay on target, and that means that you're using up more effort or energy, I guess, to stay on target, and that means that your reaction time is going to be a little bit slower because you're trying to split your focus. So when they turn around, you're going to have to perfectly flick back on target, right? And if they go for a long strafe versus a short strafe, this can be very difficult to do, right? Basically, long story short, you're staying off target for a lot longer, and it's going to be harder to get back on target. Whereas if you do something like this, it's very easy to get back on target because all you got to do is just move your mouse just a little bit and then walk in the opposite direction, and you're back on target like that. So it's easier to get back on target, and it's easier to stay on target, and there's less for you to focus on, which means you're going to be able to react more quickly to when the person is turning around. In addition to that, if you think about a game that's a top-down first-person view, or third-person view, imagine, the camera is above me right now instead of below me. Which do you think would be easier, for you to walk left and right and stay on target, or for you to try and move your mouse, right? If I move my mouse, you'll notice that I'm creating different angles, a circular pattern whenever I move my mouse left and right, right? But when I do this, I'm moving my crosshair back and forth left and right, right? So once I'm on target, I just stay on target. But to do this in a circular pattern means I constantly have to be moving my mouse versus just holding one key. If you think about it from top-down point of view, it should be fairly obvious that it's easy to line up your shots by using your W, A, S, and D keys. It's way easier to do that than it is for you to try and do it with just your mouse, right? So another example that might make it a little easier for you to understand is if you're trying to pre-aim somebody, right? We all should understand the concept of crosshair placement and when you're walking around a corner, kind of pie slicing the angle, right? We do this when we're looking for enemies, but when we already know where the enemy's at, what you should be doing is, okay, I popped out, I know where he's at, and I pop back into cover. Now, it would be really stupid for me to move my mouse back on target, because now when I come out, I'm off target. Well, if I move my mouse here, move back, then I know I'm on target as soon as I pop around that corner, right? So then, I can do stuff like this, whereas if I pie slice around the angle, it's going to be significantly more difficult for me to do. Same thing's true for mirror strafing. It's significantly easier for you to stay on target if you use your left and right keys to line up your shots than it is to try and line up your shots manually. Okay, so that's why you do mirror strafing. It's the simplest way I can explain it. Hopefully it's not too difficult to comprehend the benefits of. The next thing I want to talk about is anti-mirror strafing and why you might want to do anti-mirror strafing at times. So anti-mirror strafing is essentially where you walk in the opposite direction that your opponent's walking in. And this will make it significantly harder for you to stay on target. However, what's going to happen is, now because you guys are both rotating in the opposite direction of one another, you're going to start to kind of circle each other rather than walk line by line in a straight lining with each other. And so this can, at times, be beneficial to you because it throws off their aim as much as it throws off your aim. Like if you're trying to mirror strafe somebody and they keep walking in the opposite direction, it's going to be a lot harder for you to hit rather than if they're constantly walking in the same direction as you. So if you're always walking in the opposite direction as them, you're going to start to circle, right? You can see I'm no longer walking in a straight line. And that can make it so that you're a harder target to hit, right? So if you're playing somebody like Octane, this can be really useful because, you're a fast target to begin with, right? So you want to do everything that you can to try and throw off their bullets. And then when they're out of bullets, that's when you mirror strafe them and finish them. So it's really good, for example, if you're in a gunfight and all of a sudden you got to reload, just walk the opposite direction that they are, and it's going to be way harder for them to hit you. So it's kind of like the polar opposite of mirror strafing. Now, the next thing that's useful with anti-mirror strafing is the recoil smoothing that you get from it. So in this game, when you fire your gun, you just hold down, your recoil kicks way up, and has random left to right deviation. So when you move your crosshair ever so slightly, notice that almost all of that recoil is gone. I wish I could show you my hand right now, but I'm hardly moving it. So when you anti-mirror strafe, what that happens is you're constantly moving your crosshair to stay on target, and it's activating that recoil smoothing. And so that recoil smoothing effect is going to allow you to more accurately hit shots at long range. So when I'm up something like up here, and I'm trying to shoot a guy who's 50 meters away, that's a hard shot to hit, right? And if I just stand still and try and shoot, see, I'm really towards the end of my magazine having to fight a lot of random deviation in the recoil. But now, if I just mirror strafe, or counter mirror strafe specifically, see that towards the end of the magazine, a lot of that recoil is just smoothed out by my movement activating the recoil smoothing. So it's really good at long range to just counter mirror strafe people, because the counter mirror strafing allows you to just constantly be moving your target, your crosshair, to stay on target. So that's the gist of it. That's the difference between mirror strafing and anti-mirror strafing. Hopefully you guys learned something, and hopefully that's useful. See you next time.